Now, welcome to another battle of the heroes and villains, where this time it is Mon Mothma. Though before we get to her, you can already head down to the comments below and vote for the character that we'll do next. All you got to do is respond to my pinned comment down there with the character name, or vote with a thumbs up if the one you'd like to see is already listed. Whatever single comment gets the most votes in the next 24 hours or so will be the character that we do next. And so getting back to Mon Mothma now, let's get right to the results, where we will see that 31% of voters said she was an S tier character. 53%, a little over half, said she was A tier. 11% went with B. 3% then gave her a C. 0% said D. And then there was a final 1% that gave her an F. And when we do all the math here and consider S a score of 5 and F a score of 0, Mon Mothma ends up with an average score of 4.07, which currently puts her in second place of 2, behind Luthen Rail there in first place. And it'll be curious as the weeks go by, as we do more characters this time around, how it all shakes out and where she will eventually start to fall into place, where she will rank. As well as with Luthen, how long will he hold on to first place, and what character will eventually beat him? Alright, and moving on to the comments now, but not before once again just saying thank you to everybody who votes or comments or watches these or any of my videos across both the channels, as well as a big thank you to those who support the channels over on Patreon. Thank you so much for that. But anyway, getting to the comments and starting as we always do with the top rated one on the poll, which this time came to us from Content Corsair, who said, A would be S if Ahsoka hadn't shown that she turned into another useless bureaucrat. And in all fairness here, we don't see too much of her in the Ahsoka series. I'm not saying what we do see is great, but I have other issues with the Ahsoka series besides how she's handled. I think Dave Filoni just didn't do a terrific job writing the series on the whole, and that does include Mon Mothma's portrayal there. But again, it's not a lot, so I don't personally let it bother me too much. I think a big problem with that time period in general, not to really get into it here, but we do have to show how the New Republic is eventually going to just fall in one shot, the big shot from Starkiller Base, fired in the sequel trilogy by the First Order. So unfortunately, you could say, in a sense, Mon Mothma will be another victim of the sequel trilogy, because we can't show her being a completely competent leader that leads the New Republic into the future, because we know they're really going to be unprepared and fall apart again with one shot. But anyway, A, I think, is a fair grade to give her after the Ahsoka series didn't really do her any favors, or after the sequel trilogy doesn't do that time period any favors, if you will. Alright, and the next comment comes to us from A Olive, who said, S tier. If before Andor you told me a scene of Mon Mothma drunkenly dancing would become one of the best scenes in the franchise, I would have laughed at you. And yeah, as I have joked before, if you would have told me when I was a kid watching Return of the Jedi on repeat over and over again that Mon Mothma, the lady who gives the Bothan speech, would eventually become one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, I probably would have laughed at you. I probably would have never believed you. But here we are mainly debating with this poll if she is more of an S tier character or an A tier character because of Andor primarily. And it is in large part because of the acting of Genevieve O'Reilly. Scenes like the drunken dance scene, which out of context sounds ridiculous, but when you see it obviously in the show, you understand this is a woman who has been through everything and is suddenly just kind of breaking. And what are you going to do when you're breaking? Just dance. It's a great scene, great acting job, and the character, again, I think there's a strong case for an S tier character here, and a strong case could be made that she's just an A tier because of, as we discussed with that first comment, other shows and sources don't really do a whole lot with the character, though some do, even if it is a very brief appearance. And that brings us to this comment from Seth Young, who said, S now more than ever. Her scene in Return of the Jedi always stood out to me as a kid. In the short amount of time she had, Caroline Blackiston managed to convey a troubled, disturbed elegance that perfectly fit the leader of the rebellion. Andor then took this small glimpse into her character and expanded it in all the right ways. I'm just bummed the new canon books made her incompetent, but I just choose to ignore all that, lol. And I know, and I even joked about it myself, that she is known as the many Bothans died lady from Return of the Jedi, but in all fairness, she does a heck of a job. Caroline Blackiston, who is actually still alive, I think she's like 93 years old now, but she does a hell of a job with the little time she is given. You do feel the weight of being the leader of the rebellion upon her in that one line. and pretty much everything else she does. You can feel that this is a woman who has been through hell and back and made some really, really hard decisions and has lost a lot of people, has seen a lot of death and destruction, and is still managing to hold it all together to keep this rebellion together as they take on the Empire and approach this basically final battle to defeat them. She's only on screen for about a minute, really, but other than that Bothan line, which has made her famous, she does a hell of a job in Return of the Jedi, and it does set the stage for something like Andor. We can now see her in Return of the Jedi and go, yeah, that makes sense. That is exactly how I feel Mon Mothma would be in that moment after everything we've seen her go through. All right, and moving on to the next comment now, and I'm not just going to read all the positive ones. I will try to read some that gave her maybe a lower grade. And mind you, there really weren't too many comments from the D and F crowd. There was like one person who gave her a D, and I think it was like 6 or 7 that gave her an F. And most of them just said F or just said F, and it's a terrible character. And mind you, for future reference, if you say something along the lines of F, I hate all of Disney Star Wars, which that's fair if you feel that way. But if you say something like that, I'm not going to count your vote because you're not voting on the character. You're just hating on Disney Star Wars, which, yeah, that's your prerogative, certainly. But we are here to grade the character based on many different things besides what Disney may or may not have done with her. Anyway, a little rant aside, let's move on to this one from Dread from Hell, who said, like C or B tier, like most Andor characters, her setup in the first episodes was completely ignored. So she basically went from worrying all the time about her family to completely ignoring them and working with the rebels without us actually seeing what was in between that, which was the most important part. And yeah, I will actually give you that there is a bit of a gap in her story, or maybe a sort of issue with her story. And mind you, I think she is handled incredibly well in Andor, but we don't really see how she feels about her family having to leave them behind. Once we see her give her speech and she's whisked away to Yavin, that's it. We don't really know what happens to her daughter or happens to Perrin. Yes, we do see a brief scene of Perrin at the very, very end, but that only gives us a clue as to what he's feeling or what he did after the fact. We don't really know what happens to, again, her daughter at all. That is a big, big plot point throughout the first season and into the second season. And so I will give you that it does feel like we are missing something. We are missing part of her story that really should have been in there. And I think it is a casualty of what was supposed to be a 5 season show being condensed into 2 seasons, and the second season really being 4 seasons of a show. Not saying that's a perfect excuse. I do think you should have taken a moment or done something to, again, let us know what she thinks about leaving Perrin behind, or what is happening to her daughter. Did the Empire try to use them against her or anything like that? We are missing that. That does feel like a flaw of Andor, an otherwise pretty flawless show. But yeah, I can agree that's an issue in the series and for the character. And maybe it gets covered in a book someday. I don't know, because there is a series of books that is a kind of a companion piece to Andor. The first one came out, The Mask of Fear came out, and it was about Mon Mothma's early days right after Revenge of the Sith. So maybe we will get that answer, just not where it belonged. All right, and now on to just a few final comments here, starting with this one from composer R. David Guthrie, who said, "Hey, but only because I take my S tier very seriously. She is an amazing character." There's also this one from David Hill, who said, S. The writing and O'Reilly's acting made her a standout in a show full of standouts. Her scenes with Luthen, and especially in Announcement, are compulsively watchable and have layers of meaning and nuance. We also have this one from David BMR, who said, S in Andor, B in Rebels, F in Ahsoka. Moving on, there is this one from E.S. Vald, who said, A rank, Andor did a lot of heavy lifting. She was more of a background character even in the EU, but seeing her journey through Andor easily elevates her to an A from solid B for me. I wish her scenes in episode 3 were left in the final cut though. And finally here we have this one from Garrett the Viking, who said, S tier. We already knew she was the leader of the Rebel Alliance and that her speech in the Senate inspired the Rebel cells to unite at Dantooine and become that alliance. But Andor reveals to us who she is and the sacrifices she had to make, those being her husband, daughter, and best friend. She not only makes those sacrifices, but she also is willing to put her life on the line and speak out against the Emperor and the genocide on Gorman. Her courage is what stands out to me most about her character. No one else was willing to make that speech, and she was afraid of what would happen when she did, but she knew it needed to be done and did it herself. Her courage inspired the galaxy to fight back, and that makes her an S tier in my book. All right, and with that, it's all I got for you this time. So your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell me what you think about Mon Mothma, the character. What do you like? What do you not like? What grade does she deserve? Or feel free to vote for the character we do next. All you got to do, again, leave a comment below or vote for one by giving a thumbs up to the comment down there that has the character name you want to see. Whatever you choose to do, though, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.